Hey everybody, happy Monday.
Happy Monday, everyone. This is a video we've been wanting to do for a while. The lies that are told about bettas. There are so many misconceptions about this very popular, very wonderful fish. In fact, we did a species profile on this. In fact, we have an entire playlist about bettas, which I will put in the upper right-hand corner and a lot of videos down in the description below if you want to learn more. But these are some of the key misunderstandings when it comes to bettas. By the way, before we forget, you may notice that we are now wearing our limited edition, very limited edition, Christmas t-shirts available at primetimeaquatics.com.
Yeah.
At the time of making this video, they were there.
Yeah.
By the time you're watching it, don't know. It's a limited edition, so if you like them, go to primetimeaquatics.com, check them out.
All right, let's get this started with one of my favorites. If you have a betta, you don't need a filter.
This is a common misconception because often people see fish, bettas, in a cup in a store and they think I can just throw this thing right in a bowl and it's going to be fine. It doesn't need anything.
No.
Bettas, like all other fish, would definitely benefit from having some type of aquarium filtration. Maybe that's a hang-on back filter. Maybe that is a sponge filter. We've done a video, best filters for bettas. Put it up in the upper right-hand corner. The reason bettas need a filter like all other fish is the filter is there to house beneficial bacteria, which breaks down some of the toxic waste products that fish produce. Without that filter, that's less likely to happen. You're going to have more water quality issues and a less healthy betta. Number two, bettas don't need a heater. This is actually a great way to seriously harm your betta long term, especially if you are keeping them at your typical room temperatures in the upper 60s to low 70s. Bettas, like most other tropical fish, do in fact require warmer temperatures than most of us are going to be keeping in our regular home. And so bettas are really going to thrive in the upper 70s, even into low 80s. And for that, for most people, you are going to need a heater.
For my next pick, this is one near and dear to my heart. If you have a betta, you can get just a little container because they're sold in little cups and they look perfectly content. You can get some of those great products that you can find at any fish store. A 1-gallon tank, a 1.25 gallon tank, specifically made for a betta, and he's going to do just great. No, it's too small. We've always maintained that at least a 2.5 gallon is appropriate for a betta, but it all depends on the betta's personality, their activity level. We've had ones that are very, very active, and I actually prefer to keep them in 5-gallon tanks now because why? It's more fun for them. They get more space to wander around, and it's more fun for you to watch them.
On the flip side, you may have heard it said that bettas won't do well in larger tanks either, and that's just not true. We've kept bettas in tanks as large as 75 gallon without any issues, and in fact, a fair number of our bettas have been kept in tanks that are 10, 20, 40 gallons, 55 gallons, and they do just fine. There are a couple important factors to consider. One, bettas do need access to the top of the tank because they are air breathers, and so we want to make sure the top of the tank doesn't have excessive airflow. Two, that it's not covered in aquatic plants so they can't get to the top of the tank. So yes, bettas can do well in larger tanks.
Another misconception is that you don't have to do any water changes. You have very little maintenance because out in the wild, they're out in little dirty puddles and little streams, and they just don't require the same kind of maintenance that your other fish will need. And then, of course, keep in mind that when you buy them in a little cup and they're just fine.
Keep in mind what's going on in nature and what's going on in a closed system and aquarium are two very different things. Bettas, like all fish, their tanks are going to require regular maintenance, and that means water changes. That means making sure you don't have ammonia or nitrite in the tank that could seriously damage them. I think the other misconception is because they are air breathers, the water quality doesn't need to be as good. And again, that's just not true. The tank maintenance for your betta is going to be about the same as any other type of fish that can be housed in the same size tank. Another question we get asked a lot, and I'm actually surprised by this, because people have actually been told this is okay, you can keep multiple male bettas in the same tank, and that is just not true. I don't care what size the tank is. If they can find each other, most likely you are going to have a very serious fight going on. Trust me, you only want to keep one male betta in a tank at a time, or you could have some very serious issues. Along the same lines, you can keep males and female bettas together. That, for breeding purposes, yes, but as soon as they breed, you are going to be removing the female. Long term, your standard bettas, male and females, are not going to mix. Yes, there are some bettas, like we had the Betta Mahachai, where we could keep those together. But for the most part, the bettas that you buy in a store, you do not want to keep your males and females together in a tank long term. There will eventually be problems. The last thought is keeping multiple females together. You may have heard of a female Betta sorority. That can potentially work, and in fact, we're going to dive into that much deeper in a future video. But if you've got a smaller tank, that can be very hard to accomplish, and you need a lot of bettas to make that, female bettas to make that work. It's best for a beginner not to try that until you have a lot of experience.
Now, another misconception is that you have a Betta, that Betta needs to be by itself. It needs to live alone in a tank all by itself, because it's a fighting fish. Well, no, that is a misconception, and a lot of our bettas are kept with other fish. There's a lot of great options for fish that do very well with bettas.
Now, that being said, every once in a while you are going to have a betta that just feels more comfortable, more relaxed in a tank on its own. But to say that they need to be on their own just isn't true. In fact, the majority of bettas we have kept in a community type of tank. And the last misconception, that bettas are going to be aggressive, and so they're going to be the dominant fish in the tank. Sometimes that is the case, but a few things you have to consider. One, bettas are very slow-moving fish, and so they're prone to being fin-nipped, even by fish that are much smaller than them. And because they are slower moving, sometimes fish approximately the same size will eventually be more dominant. The example that we like to use is we had a betta in with a honey gourami. You wouldn't think the honey gourami would run that tank. It did. We had to separate those fish. So just because bettas are called the Siamese killing fish doesn't necessarily mean they are going to be mean fish or aggressive or dominant. You still have to be very thoughtful about your tank mates when you're keeping bettas. And in fact, we just did a video on Betta Buddies, which we will put in the description below. So those were some misconceptions when it comes to bettas. Would love to hear from you down in the comments section below. What else have you heard? Other misconceptions? Appreciate you being here, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.